Welcome to reality. We're going to give you a walkthrough experience of a player mid-game. It starts with a simple news feed about an event that they'll be covering. Then we'll move on to the UI, which is designed to be usable and accessible on the iPad, tablets, phones, and personal computers to really reach a wide variety of players. In the upper right-hand side of the screen, you'll see the available resources, which include the amount of time that's available before the story becomes obsolete, and the amount of money that the player has to pursue leads and pay rent, which is a requirement so that the player does not get a game over. Bottom left, we've got the player's reputation and their popularity, which is based 1 out of 5 flames. And then on the right-hand column, we've got the leads, which includes the amount of resources to pursue that lead. So in this case, we'll click on the fire chief, and you'll get a summary of the interview that's been condensed into 3 to 6 lines that the player may choose to incorporate into his or her story. Then you're asked if you'd like to spend additional resources to purchase background information, and the player can really use this information to determine what was the motivation of the source for giving the information that they did, and really helping them to decide whether or not to include this lead into the story. So after the player has investigated the first lead, more options become available simply because more time has passed and because the author has more ideas about how to pursue information. So we'll select the onlooker, and we learn that he thinks there are terrorists that have bombed the church. Better figure out some background information on him. Unfortunately, the background information is as sketchy as the source is in this case. So after 2 interviews, the player decides they better get quotes from a bigger figure for the article, the mayor. The mayor and several other characters in the game are based on real people. While the story itself is fictitious and of our own creation, we did try to take as many examples as we could from real people and events to keep the games grounded in a relatable reality. This is quite possibly something that they could see in their own news media. We're hoping they will begin to reflect on things and consider bias as they see these in the future. So we've got enough resources to pursue 1 lead. So we'll click on Twitter. Story is consistent with the onlookers, but we can't obtain any background information because of the anonymity of Twitter. Looks like we are low on resources, so we will sell the story. We need to pick a photo and a headline that's consistent with the mission of the newspaper we want to sell to. Players learn these details at the beginning of the game. Then we'll get feedback, but what is not obvious is how the sale impacted the player's reputation with sources, readers, and community groups. This will impact future events, possibly even the player's safety and ability to write future stories. In reality, the same event can be reported very differently. So in this case, pick the pastor, learn what she has to say, get the background information on her as a source, evaluate her bias, and then jump to more sources. In this case, the choices are the same as in the previous case, but they are not always. So in here, we'll click on the janitor, determine his background information, consider his bias, click another. Again, determine her bias. Looks like we have time for 1 last option. You can see we had faulty wiring. She looks to be credible. This all leads to a very different story, very different pictures to choose from, very different headlines, and very different prices considering the reporter's reputation. Lastly, different feedback, different reputation with the community as a whole.